The BBC has decided to go hard on its asylum seeker propaganda today. Now, this story is particularly brutal and very sad, but what the BBC are trying to do here is tug on your heartstrings to make you feel responsible for the choices that an Iraqi man made. This story is about a man called Ahmed al-Hashimi who lost his daughter on an illegal crossing of the Channel. He states that he cannot forgive himself, but it was the only choice he had. Ahmed states that he boarded a small boat which was overrun by Sudanese migrants who started a crush which his daughter didn't escape from. Now, the BBC is trying to emotionally manipulate you with this story. It's obviously got quite an emotional punch because of the situation. However, if you look at it coldly, you can actually see that Ahmed fails to take responsibility time and again for his family. Point number one is that although Ahmed is Iraqi, his daughter has never visited the country, being born in Belgium and spending a life in Sweden. Well, what does that tell you? If you are someone who's seeking asylum in a country, it may not be a good idea to have a child. Personally speaking, I had to wait to have a child till I was in a stable relationship, in a stable situation in my life, and that's why I'm already a British citizen. So after knowingly bringing a child into the world he couldn't guarantee the safety for, he then took the same child on a dinghy full of Sudanese migrants who then trampled that child and suffocated her to death. Any parent should know that that's too dangerous a situation to put a child in. And then we have Ahmed's justifications. He states he'll never forgive himself and that the sea was the only choice he had, stating he spent 14 years in Europe already and was rejected. He couldn't go back to Iraq apparently because of militia groups. Several problems with this, however. The BBC regularly informs us that Europe, and especially the UK, is an Islamophobic hellhole for anybody who's not a white straight male. So why on earth would he want to come to Europe in the first place? Why not go to the lovely Muslim world that's obviously so tolerant and caring? This is, of course, an example of BBC Orwellian doublethink. One day they'll be telling you how you're an Islamophobic racist, that Britain is one of the worst places in the world for any migrant, and the next day, of course, they will tacitly expect you to understand that migrants need to come here because we're tolerant and accepting. The second major flaw is that Ahmed states this was his last chance, but was it really? He's only stated he tried to get asylum in Belgium and Sweden and then has tried to cross to the UK 4 times. Given that he'd spent 10k to the smugglers in every pop, it seems that he wasn't struggling, at least seriously, for money. We all know the real reason why he wanted to come to the UK. It's seen as a soft touch, you get the most benefits and social acceptance. Secondly, there's a reason Belgium and Sweden, those famously far-right totalitarian countries, refused his citizenship application. That's because they believed Basra, his hometown, was safe. Ahmed states he couldn't go back because of militia groups, but were they putting his daughter's life at risk? I think any father would put their own life before their child, and now he's paid the price. And let's be honest, people say many things when they're looking for sympathy and asylum. Do we even know that there are any militant groups that are out to get him? Odd how BBC Verify seems to not want to verify that one. Ahmed ends by making an emotional plea to the British government, stating he's suffered so much, he deserves sympathy and support. However, unfortunately, Ahmed, the vast majority of this is down to your own bad decisions. Second to that, if we were to listen to the emotional story of every single person who has an emotional claim for asylum, we'd have half of the world moving to the UK. Now, this story is, of course, a tragedy, but it's not one that the British people are responsible for. The British government and the BBC, however, may be. The government and the European Court of Human Rights, the EU, all of these bodies fail to understand that the more that you accept asylum seekers, the more they're going to come and the more deaths you're going to have in the Channel. Yet the behaviour from the BBC is particularly appalling, putting this story as their lead story in a way to emotionally propagandise people into a leftist immigration policy really is undermining the public will. Every time you think the BBC can't sink any lower, they will stand on the graves of dead children to emotionally propagandise you. And of course, by pursuing the policy that they want, they will cause more deaths of children trying to cross the Channel. Remember, when they're trying to emotionally manipulate you, they don't have the moral high ground. These people will create a situation 1,000 times worse than we've got already. And unfortunately, with the Labour Party likely to come in soon, we're probably going to see that. These are just my thoughts, however. Do let me know what you think down below and do consider subscribing to the channel.